Welcome, welcome, Lawrence. I think of you as a person who understands the Senate for obvious reasons in ways that most people don't. There is a movement to impeach Kristi Noem. A lot, like a third of House Democrats have signed on to this idea. Do you think it's a good idea? And I mean, structurally, does it mean accountability or am I just high on my own supply?
That's too many questions because if I go for the last one, we'll be here for a while. So here's the thing about this kind of analysis. It requires a humility that has been lost in our
Mm.
culture. People think they understand everything as soon as they've read 2 articles about it, and so then they can have an opinion and they say this is a good idea or a bad idea. Let me take you back to the ancient period of the 1990s. This is when Donald Trump was universally considered an idiot. And it was before any television network would ever dream of doing business with him, as NBC sadly descended into in the 21st century. And so in those days, if you were to ask me if something was a good idea or a bad idea as a vote in the House or the Senate, I could tell you. And I could tell you why. And the reason is it was a lot like meteorology. We had seen a version of this play before. It was never the case that we could say, well, we've never seen anything like this before. We had
Mm.
seen everything, and everything
Mhm.
was then a variation on everything. Okay, so then people like me became very good at predicting what was going to happen next, what was going to work, what was going to win, what was going to lose. But I have to say, I did not consider it a very highly refined skill. It was just sort of a bunch of private information at the time. There was no American citizen who knew what budget reconciliation was. There was no American citizen who knew what a budget resolution is. There's no American citizen who knew what the word cloture meant. Okay. Everybody knows that now. And that's great, by the way, because I can now talk to civilians in a way that I couldn't before.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean you know what's going to happen next in a completely new environment. So the word impeachment,
Yeah.
uh, you know, has lost all of its meaning. It's lost its strategic meaning. It's lost its significance in so many ways that I have no idea whether it is a good idea for House Republicans to say let's impeach Kristi Noem. I don't know, and I don't think people know. So I think these are the moments where you sit back and you say, I'm glad I don't have that job. Because if I had that job, it would be hard for me to
Right.
decide which way to go here. And oh, by the way, how do I pick her? Out of the
Mhm.
whole bunch, how is that the one I pick? And not the attorney general and not Donald Trump. And how do you do that? And I have no idea. And no one should pretend that they do. And
Mm.
so I respect the judgment of some of the people who are at the forefront of this choice. And I certainly respect the judgment of people who are hanging back going, wait a minute, I'm not sure we should make this move. And we all know that there are not, 67 votes in the Senate to convict anyone.
Certainly. Yeah.
I don't believe that should be a determining factor in whether the House
Mhm.
acts. I think the House, for example, in the Trump impeachments, had a moral and historic obligation to act
Mhm.
and impeach him. And if the Senate failed, the Senate failed, but the House had its own duty. And I never accepted the idea that, well, why are they doing this if they know they're going to lose in the Senate? There was an absolute correct mandate to do that, and they did it. This is the longest version of I don't know that you've ever heard on this program.
I think the history of this is important, and the way the calculus has changed is also important, right? You have to make decisions in a different way. And I agree. And I also think that a trial in the Senate is meaningful for any number of reasons, and the biggest of which is accountability.
Yeah, and it's certainly a way of getting in the way of a crazy Republican Senate and basically taking up some of their calendar time to prevent them from doing bad things on those days for those hours. And so I listen, I just don't know. I mean, look, when I was there, it was stuff like, should we try to attach a minimum wage amendment to this moving vehicle legislatively? Because we're not going to see another one where it could be germane for the next year. Blah, blah. You know, that was the stakes. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so this has to be respected. as completely uncharted territory. We say it all the time. We say unprecedented. We say uncharted territory. And then as soon as the word unprecedented is said, someone then predicts for you what's going to happen next.
Right.
Well, that's pretty ridiculous.
Right.
That let's just admit it. Let's just live in the present tense. We don't know. And oh, by the way, that's true of everything else in your life.
True. I don't have a huge deal of respect for Mike Johnson, but the level in which discharge petitions have flown by his desk shows that his colleagues don't have a lot of respect for him either.
Yeah, and it would create problems for him. It would create problems for, other Republicans. So I don't know, is that what you do in this minority in this House of Representatives?
Yeah.
When I was there, when I was working in the Senate, the Republicans had not controlled the House of Representatives in my lifetime, literally in my lifetime. Okay. And so the House was like a Soviet institution. The minority had absolutely no rights. And here's the important thing about the minority, the Republican minority in the House. They had no expectations, none. They never expected to be allowed in the room where a governing decision would be made. And they never were in the House of Representatives. And some of them, shared enough policy agreements with Democrats that they would join a lot of different kinds of legislation, especially, defense funding and infrastructure spending was non-controversial in those days. There was a lot of stuff that was in the middle of the field, that they got to participate in, but no House chairman ever put something in a bill because a Republican member of the committee wanted it. And so they just got to vote on the product of that this other party was putting out. There is no such thing as a historical model for an effective running of a minority party in the House of Representatives. It doesn't exist. And so when people complain about what are the Democrats doing in the House, I just kind of sit there and think, that's like asking what the passengers on the F train are doing about how fast the train is going. It's
Hmm.
just like, what are you talking about? And what they're talking about is the expectation, understandably, because they've been fundamentally lied to about this for a long time, the
Yeah.
expectation that their vote within a so-called democracy for their local representative has some meaning in Washington when their local representative shows up there. And that's just a little hunk of mythology that, that this place has been selling, that has as much, truth to it as a Hallmark greeting card.
For a party that is in the minority, I mean, I never thought any of that stuff would pass.
Yeah, you know how many discharge petitions passed when I was working there? Zero. I
Yeah.
didn't know what a discharge petition was. Okay. I
Yeah.
worked in the Senate.
Yeah.
It never happened. I didn't have to know what a discharge petition was. I was never sitting there in the Senate going, oh, they just passed a discharge petition in the House in my jurisdiction in the Senate Finance Committee. We now have to act on it. Like that never happened. So yeah, so I'm sitting here kind of astounded at what they have accomplished. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of in awe of it.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. The other thing I want to bring up is the reason that the House had been controlled by Democrats for so long was really because of Nixon, right?
Oh no, it way predates Nixon.
We're talking about
Yeah,
explain to us the story that.
it's really because of Franklin Roosevelt. Really,
Yeah.
I mean that's really what created the real functioning Democratic majority in government, and that carried over. You could switch back and forth a little bit, but basically, once the New Deal passed and Social Security was real, and people were receiving Social Security in the
Right.
1950s, you had recipients receiving it. That was a grateful country for what the Democratic Party had done, and so they weren't. And also, by the way, the whole crossover interests of voters were kind of rational. It's like you were voting. People weren't voting on issues like abortion; it didn't exist as an issue, right? And so they were voting on what do they think is beneficial to them, and most people needed Social Security, so they would be voting in that direction.
Trump has really tried hard not to fire people, or at least not to create the appearance of firing people. That's been, it's like he definitely saw the Maddow wall of fired people. Like that's what I keep thinking about because clearly that's a thing for him. But Greg Bovino is out
Well,
or
I'll
ish.
yeah, I'll believe it when he's actually out. The poor guy was going for a big career on Fox and in right-wing media. He
Hmm.
that's why he wasn't wearing the mask.
Right.
He wanted to be on TV. He wanted us to recognize his face because here's what he knew: if he makes it to the end of the Trump presidency, he's going to be fired by the Democratic presidency on the first day. He's going
Oh,
to be
yeah.
fired from that job. Okay, they don't have to have any kind of disciplinary procedure for him. Just fire him right on the spot, because Trump has established that the president can fire anybody. And so that guy would have been fired, and then he would have gone off into the heroism of right-wing media with his recognizable face.
Hmm.
He may have created enough political problems for Trump and the Republican Party that he won't be welcome in the lucrative area of Republican propaganda, and will be kind of trying to scrape the bottom of that barrel somehow, with his podcast.
It's
Wait!
true.
I didn't just say podcast.
No,
That would
listen,
be
man,
that
there's money
that
to be
could be.
made here. There's money to be made here. And
Yeah.
especially if you're on the right, for sure. And I do think it's a really good point. The idea that he's not wearing a mask and that he's sort of taking ownership of a lot of this. And we did see this, right, with Bongino, where Bongino,
Yeah.
go
Didn't
on.
work out so well. He was the shortest lived player. But, yeah, sure. Trump, by the way, to get back to your point, Trump doesn't want to fire anybody. He wants to live by that thing of I choose the best people. He knows he doesn't. He knows that every single one of his choices for this administration, every one of them, was number one, someone who is so small and so weak that this person will never consider turning against Donald Trump under
Hmm.
any circumstances. And if you're one of the cabinet members who has a vote on the 25th Amendment procedure, you got to make sure every one of them would never consider the 25th Amendment. And he succeeded on that. The second thing that was almost equally important for every single choice is Donald Trump sat there and he thought, what is the most insulting choice I can give to this institution? How can I insult the FBI the most? And
Mm.
while I'm at it, how can I insult liberals? How can I
Hmm.
insult Democrats because I hate them and I want them to feel pain even by my choices? And that's
Yeah.
where every one of those choices came from. He knew they're nuts. He knew Cash Patel's a joke, but he
Yeah.
also knew the people I hate, will hate this so much I have to do it. And so that was driving every one of these choices all the way through. And that's why he doesn't want to let go of any one of them, no matter what they do.
So there's like public Trump, and he's doing stuff like that. And then there's this really good piece in New York Magazine by Ben Terrace where Trump takes a call from Ari Emanuel about tax benefits for California for filming. And in it, he's very complimentary to Ari Emanuel. One of the ways that Trump has gotten so far, I think, in this administration is that he's like outright does the white supremacist stuff, but then will sometimes make deals with people. Because obviously, or people feel, not even make deals, people feel that they could make a deal with him. And that's why Tim Cook is in the White House ruining himself. And that's why Jeff Bezos, is killing the Washington Post because they think they can make it that there's some rational Trump. Talk me through this in any which way you want.
No, I think those people are all talking to him because they know there is no rational Trump. There is absolutely no rational Trump. So if you're running Apple and you know that these iPhones cost what they cost because they're made in China, and Donald Trump is empowering himself illegally to create a tariff regime that is illegal and unconstitutional, he can destroy your iPhone sales. He can take the
Mhm.
price of an iPhone and double it instantaneously. Okay. So you're Tim Cook, and you go in there, and you're basically going in there to stop this irrational madman from doubling the price of iPhones, and you do it by giving him trinkets and gifts and just physically being there, because Trump has always been in awe of these people who are the real masters of business and the
Mhm.
real richest people in the world. He's always lived in awe of them, and even in Manhattan, where he wasn't close to the richest, not nowhere close to it, as you know,
Mhm.
and so there is no rational Trump. That's why they're in there trying to do that. Tim Cook knew that there wasn't a single day in which Joe Biden was ever going to interfere with his business. He
Mm.
knew he knew the president doesn't have a legal power to interfere with his business. There is no legal power to do it. He could ignore the president, as you should be able to. Everyone in the country should be able to ignore the president. And so, because there's an irrational madman there, where China's the worst thing in the world and we have to bring all the jobs back here, the guy who's got the biggest money making operation going in China, selling stuff in the United States, is Tim Cook. And he went in and exempted it completely from everything Trump was trying to do. And so, no, the iPhone factories are not coming back to Montana. That's not going to happen, because the irrational madman was, persuaded by the charm of a guy whose corporate duty, not necessarily civic duty or moral duty, is to shareholders, and he represented his shareholders well in basically, tricking the irrational madman into exempting the biggest thing that we get from China in our
Right.
lives.
I just want you to talk about when we look at this polling and the way people are speaking out finally, it feels like killing two white citizens may have been a tipping point for Americans at this moment. What do you think about this? And for them to just sort of lose the support. I mean, they've really turned normies against this. Are you surprised? What's your thoughts on this?
These are the kinds of events that do change positions. They don't exactly change minds. What they do is they change the strength of a grip on a position. I watched as a kid in the 1960s, hardcore racists, go from hardcore racists and using the N word, for everything, to by 1975 not using that word anymore. Took maybe 15 years of trying to convince those people not to use that word. And what was happening was, at first they were realizing, oh, I just can't get caught using that word. I can use it with some people, but I actually watched it get to the point where it was extinguished from their vocabulary. And so what that was the loosening of the grip of the concept, and protest did that, and sacrifice did that, and assassination did that. And so Martin Luther King's life was not lost in vain. And I wish I had it in front of me at the moment, but I read it in full last night on the show, and that is the parents' statement, Alex Preddy's parents' statement, and they have a sentence in the middle of it about the significance of Alex Preddy's contribution to where we are right now and what is possible from this point forward. And I think we are seeing that. I think we will see it for a very long time to come. And this is the way protest works. The history of protest, just during my lifetime in this country, and certainly before, the history of it is that if it's a serious protest about a serious thing, it takes a long time. It's not a quick action. It takes a long
Mm.
time. And if it's a serious protest about a serious thing, civil rights, Vietnam, and now Donald Trump's invasion of America, people will die in that protest. And those are the three characteristics of those kinds of protests. They take a long time, they are difficult, people will die, and the most important thing, they work. They succeed in the end. And there isn't one of those major protests that did not succeed in the end. And so we are headed for a different place on this subject of immigration, on this subject of border control. And it's not going to be next week. And it's not going to be because of anything Donald Trump does or doesn't do in Minneapolis. It's not going to be because Donald Trump takes his invasion forces out of Minneapolis. It's going to be because there's a president of a different party 3 years from now. And that will partially be be because of what is happening in Minneapolis. This is part of what will drive the victory of the Democratic candidate in the next presidential election. And that is when the real work on the real solution to the new way we should live in relation to this subject will begin. It won't begin before that because of the Trump regime and because of the Republicans in Congress, but it will begin 3 years from now. It's not going to be quick. It's going to be long, but it is going to be successful.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence.